We've been reading here from the Gospel of John, but all the first readings come from the book of Acts. And for the remainder of the Easter season, right up until Pentecost, for the next 2.5 weeks or so, our first readings will all come from the Acts of the Apostles. So I think I'll talk about the Acts of the Apostles for the next few weeks when I do this Mass. The Acts of the Apostles, in their origin, they were attached to the Gospel of Luke. The Gentile Luke writes the Gospel as 24 chapters. It finishes with the ascension of Jesus. And the Acts of the Apostles begin with the ascension of Jesus. So in its origin, Gospel of Luke and the Acts of the Apostles were all one book. The Acts of the Apostles are a chronicle, an insight into the early church up to about the year 65. Paul was imprisoned in Rome. So they give us a very good insight into the workings of the church in the very early post-Jesus times. The big controversy which appears today in this part we're reading, unfortunately we're checking in the middle of the book. I mean, our reading today is from chapter 15. So an awful lot went on. It's like beginning the book in the middle of the book. But the controversy spoken about in today's reading has to do with circumcision. And if you go up, this is chapter 15, if you go back just a few chapters to chapter 11, you'll find that Peter had this vision at Joppa. Now, some of the pilgrims will remember maybe going to Joppa. It's near Tel Aviv. And that's where Peter had a vision of God speaking to him about including the Gentiles in the early church. So now we have chapter 15 here, where they're in Antioch. Antioch is in present-day Turkey. Years ago, I did a journey through Turkey following the footsteps of Paul. Antioch is in Turkey. The big contest, the big controversy was when Gentiles want to become part of the early church, the Christian community. Do they have to become Jews first? Do they have to be circumcised, which is your identity in the Hebrew tradition? And there was a very strong opinion that if you want to be a follower of Jesus Christ and you want to belong to the community and you are a Gentile, you must be circumcised. You must become Jewish first. This became a big issue on the first council of the church, which is in Jerusalem. It becomes an issue here in Antioch because our reading today says some followers came down from Jerusalem to Antioch and began to become legalistic about who may belong to the community. And they said they must be circumcised first before they can be followers of Jesus. They must become Jews first. It became a very intense discussion. And in due time, Peter will speak up, and he will speak about the vision he had at Joppa and how God explained to him that all people must be included, and the whole controversy will be somehow resolved in the community at Jerusalem. Paul and Barnabas will go up to Jerusalem, and they will resolve this issue and say, no, they do not have to be circumcised, but they do have to keep some of the Mosaic law. Now, what's very interesting here is if you read St. Paul's letter to the Galatians, you'll find that St. Paul and Peter had a fierce controversy, a confrontation. And Paul says, I faced Peter down and I told him he was wrong. He's telling the first pope. He said, I told him he was wrong and he knew he was wrong. And Paul is very outspoken about this in his letter to Galatians. But when he goes up to Jerusalem, he extends the hand clasp of friendship because he will not break the koinonia. He won't break the community. He will not allow his difference to break the community. Now, that's very important. All these teachings are part of the birthing of the church to which we belong. Controversy, division of opinion, is rather important because that's the way we grow. You never know where the edge is until you get to the edge. So some people have become anxious in the church today where you have different opinions about things and who gets included and who gets excluded and what law should be dominant to say you don't fit, you don't qualify. That's exactly what we're looking at in the Acts of the Apostles. So who qualifies? Who do you have to be to belong? And if you don't quite fit the law, is there a place for you? Very, very good question in the early church and a very good question today. So never fear differences of opinion, so long as they are not bitter and judgmental and hard. What's missing in these differences of opinion is dialogue. Now, dialogue, I've said many times before, has never been an instrument to resolve differences. Some people think dialogue, if we dialogue, we'll agree. That's not dialogue. Dialogue is an instrument to allow differences. If I have to convince you I'm right and you're wrong, that's not dialogue, that's debate. And in a debate, you have a winner and a loser. In dialogue, there are no losers. I reverence you, I respect you, I honor your opinion. We differ, but I bless you. That's dialogue. Dialogue is reverence, respect. What you have here in the book of Acts is a dialogue. I know there's some strong opinion, but somehow they come to a resolution of this and they grow. The dialogue, the controversy gets them to grow. And this will happen. It'll happen at Holy Family in the next few weeks where we get a new pastor. And people will say, I know, but it's different. Of course it's different. Will it change? Yes. Holy Family will change. Well, the things we're very used to, some of those things will be adjusted, will disappear, and new things will appear. That's the way we grow. And that's what you're going to get. We'll see more of this as I move along, and we'll come back and visit the Acts of the Apostles. Insight into the early church, which in fact gives us insight into the present church. Amen.